Alright, so thanks for coming tonight. We're going to be talking about pair programming. It is fun. My name is Ocampo-Gooding. I'm a developer here at Shopify, and you can find details about me at this web address. So, as we know it, programming is a fairly one-player activity, right? You might be interacting with folks like product designers and developers around you, and people managing things, but when it comes down to it, it's pretty much just you and the computer having a conversation. There's a lot of typing. And what I propose that you try tonight is two-player mode. And I can definitively tell you that when you start doing this, it is not easy, but it is worth it. This is a rally car, so rallying. The sport of rallying involves getting in a car and going through woods and other rough terrain as fast as possible and getting to the finish line in as little time as possible. Rally car is super fun to watch and also kind of scary if you're on the sidelines because the cars go like flying right off and could crush you at any moment. But what's really incredible about rally car that I'm really into it is that if you look closely, there are actually two people in this car. It is not a one-player game. Rally kart is definitely a two-player sport. So this is Anya. She's a German driver, and her co-pilot Matthias. So what's going on here is first, like Anya has to she's taking this crazy drift, and she's having to look directly into the sun. But it's cool because Matthias is over there, and he's telling her, "Hey, don't worry, I'm looking at the map right now, everything's cool." Which means that Anya can be freed up to focus on driving as fast as possible and looking at just the space ahead of her. As opposed to Matthias, who's also looking around for anything that might be affecting the car, things up ahead. He's looking at a map, he's in communication with the folks running the race. He's doing all sorts of other stuff that frees up Anya. And together, they're an awesome team, and they can make this car go as fast as possible. So, again, drivers can see, and they usually optimize for local maxima, and co-pilots can see and optimize for this global maxima. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm in one-player mode, I might be finding myself going down rabbit holes, but I won't know it for an hour, because I'm just oh, but this one little more thing, and there's your day. Meanwhile, if you have another person sitting next to you, they can have this extra perspective that lends them the ability to say, hey, maybe we want to pause from this experiment we're running right now in exploring this idea and try something else. Maybe we can step back. So this is a woman. These are two entities that are arguing with each other. The idea here with this picture is that I want to say communication is hard. Right? This is why two-player mode is not easy. It's not always straightforward. One person at the outset might be aggressively saying, we should try this, and we need to use this language, and we should be approaching the problem this way, and the other thing in the picture is a dog, which has no idea what is happening in it. Yeah. So communication is hard, but that's not really the problem that I typically see in pairing, at least between myself and another partner, or when watching other people. I say that empathy is hard, and empathy turns out to be the key to pair programming. When I see empathy, I also want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Empathy is the idea of knowing what this other person is feeling, and understanding that they are frustrated, and understanding that they are confused, and knowing that, and you can feel that as well. Which sounds a little wishy-washy, but trust me on this, your feelings will guide you in the right direction as long as you are empathetic. Okay, so some pro tips. I don't know about you, but when you are just starting out learning something, and you sit down next to somebody who has done it for a while longer, it's very easy for this other person to just say, it's okay, just let me do this. This is not a good time. And let me assert to you that tonight is about having a good time, right? Like, none of you have to be here. All of you probably have other things that you could be doing, but you're choosing to come tonight and learn some things and have a good time. And that's what pair programming is about. It's about getting stuff done and having a good time doing it. And incidentally, you also tend to end up with higher quality code, but I'll talk about that in a second. So again, the point here is like, you want to be as empathetic as possible with this other person. You can't just be like, shut it, like out of the way. Let me just do this. It's more like, let's try this and see where it goes. And even better is to be inclusive and talk through your problem or solution, as opposed to just like shoving this other person away and just like cutting them off and basically playing a one-player game with two people. A great way to get started doing that is just by just like writing in some pseudocode. Be like, hey, you know what? I think the way that we should approach this is by throwing down this, and let me get some paper out, and like I'll draw a sequence diagram. These are the objects that are involved, and I think these are the messages that they need to pass. Just like, you know, rapid prototyping approaches to coding. These things foster all sorts of great conversations, and they actually let you work faster. And more importantly, they let you establish that empathetic connection with this other person. Having two imaginations working on the same problem is a luxury. This is a creative thing that we are doing. And do everything that you can to house those two imaginations. It's hard, but you should try. Again, okay, rally hard. It is okay to ask to drive. So sometimes I'll see this as like two people and they're like typing. Maybe there's two keywords, maybe there's one. And one person who might be a little shy is just sitting there. And they kind of know the answer, but they see this other person, they're like, I'm trying to be as empathetic as possible. And this other person's like, not really sure. When I say empathetic, I don't mean passive. I mean, it is totally cool for you as a person who doesn't speak up very much to still say like, hey, do you mind if I drive for a second? This is a great, like using those words precisely, do you mind if I drive for a second? Is a great way to change over the dynamic and like continue going, continue dancing, right? It is likely that your partner will at some times feel a little lost, a little confused. I don't know about you, but when somebody else watches me type, my hands turn to flippers and they do this, and you just feel dumb. Your brain is trying to do so many things at once, right? It's trying to like find that tunnel vision focus and also be empathetic and trying to talk to this other person, and it takes a while to get into that rhythm. For this other person, you know, be empathetic. You should notice that. You should say, hey, do you mind if I drive for a second? Or you should like help them out in any way possible. Okay. One way that you can get started doing that is just by looking and finding docs that you know that this partner of yours is going to need in a second. Or it's okay for you to like peel off for a moment and start researching, hey, here's some other parts of the API that we could be interested in using in this particular problem, or something like that. Or start thinking about refactoring solutions. How many of you have had this experience where you sit down and you're like, oh, cool! What the fuck, Emacs? So no fun dance partner ever, right? What I want you to try and go for tonight is less WTF and then spend time talking about why a particular editor is better than another one, and consider it instead Here is a great chance for me to learn a new musical instrument for free. I'm not going to learn everything about it tonight. I'm going to learn enough to type some characters and maybe cut and paste and exit. If you can do that, I think that you're set. This is all kind of an experiment. Something else that you could try tonight is testing ping pong. So this is where one person will write up a test, and then the other person will do the simplest thing possible to make that test pass. And you can explore the ranges of that spectrum of what does simple mean, right? Like your function that is being called in the test, maybe it just actually returns a hard-coded string. And that's kind of a dick move, but it's allowed. You should try that. I mean, like, be empathetic, you'll figure out a good rhythm, but it's fun. Just try and see where it goes. This is your chance to do that. I've done this. So I paired with someone for a straight, like, 25 minutes with somebody who actually doesn't find any trouble speaking his mind. And it was amazing. Like, it was so hard for me, but it was incredibly gratifying knowing that I could do this, and I feel that it changed the way that I communicated for the better. I became more transparent in my code, more expressive. If all I had, in terms of communication options, was actually pseudocoding and like writing in some ideas in comments or something like that. It was fascinating. It was cool. It pushed things in terms of empathy to the edge, which I liked. Tonight, I should also recommend that you start with a problem that you can both understand. When you start with a problem that requires you both to like sit down and wrap your minds around this, tonight will not be about pair programming. It will be about wrapping your heads around another problem, and then maybe some other stuff. So instead, I suggest that you start with checking out exorcism.io, which is awesome, and I'll sit down and talk to you about it later. Basically, it's a series of exercises that are easy to understand. They come with the tests, and you just make the code pass, and then you like nitpick other people's code. So you can do that together. You could also try working on some code katas. So there's a code kata problem called bank OCR. It's pretty straightforward to wrap your head around, and what's cool is that like the problem evolves. Like there's the different stages to it, and at each stage it's totally simple. It's very straightforward in terms of what to do, but it is elusive in terms of a good solution. Like it's hard enough. It's good. That's it. Why don't you start there? Thanks very much for listening to me, and I'm open to hearing some questions. Okay.